What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Stauffer Garage. I have an update for you guys and also want to get started on another episode. So, like I mentioned in the last vlog, I actually decided that it is time to go ahead and rip it out and put the engine in the Civic as soon as I can. So I had a few parts ordered and they finally come in the mail. The first one is my T-bracket from the Civic Si 99 to 2000 EM1 engine. This is to hold the B16 in the Civic, but it also can hold the B18. So with that bracket, I can use my existing subframe and my existing mounts. I just have to remove the tranny bracket off the D16 and move it over to the B18, and then I'll be able to bolt it in with all the other mounts. I also have from the CRV the 2-post mount that goes on the timing belt side. I already have that mount, and I also have the AC bracket from a CRV B20 that my friend picked up from the junkyard for me. So I have all my mounts necessary to get the engine into the Civic without having to buy extra mounts from like Innovative or Hasport. But then I also picked up, there's a guy on YouTube, on eBay, and I'll put his name here in the description, but he actually sells harnesses, and I picked him up as well. It was like 60 bucks, which isn't bad, and he has all of the harnesses that you need to add to your existing DX non-VTEC harness for like 60 bucks. So like I said, it's real cheap. It's not bad. It comes with one O2 extension harness for an OBD2 car, so mine's OBD2, so I have an extension harness for the second sensor. He also sends you the 2-wire IAT sensor harness that you need to adapt, because mine is a 3-wire on the DX harness to a 2-wire for the B18. It also comes with a harness, and this one comes with all the connectors for the VTEC solenoid, so you have your pressure and send part of the harness. And then you also have your IACV valve for idling, I believe, and then there's also a harness for the knock sensor. I believe that's correct, if I said that right. I might be wrong. But either way, that has all the wiring that I need to run to the engine bay, into the ECU, and plug it into my existing harness. So that harness allows it to be all plug and play and make it real easy to swap it in. The next thing that I also picked up that I need is an exhaust system, because the exhaust system on the stock Civic ain't gonna cut it at 1.75 inches, and the one on the Integra doesn't fit, and it's also 3 inches, a little big. So guys, I actually paid for all this. This isn't sponsored. I picked up a Yonaka catback system, which is 2.5 inch, which will be nice. So if I do boost it, it's kind of middle range. It's not quite 3 inch, but it'll be fine. It'll work. Oh, sweet. So I already have a 2.5 inch test pipe on the Integra to a 3 inch exhaust. As you can see there, he already had a 2.5 inch test pipe, which I will be able to reuse on the Civic if necessary. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but I at least have the parts. So I'm probably going to drop the exhaust system off of this car, get that out, drop the shift linkage. I've already started taking apart the tie rods. I've taken I loosened the castle nut on the one side, on the driver's side. I'm going to do the passenger side, and I'm going to start pulling the drive shafts out and start disconnecting this engine from the engine bay. Pull the harnesses. It's actually real easy on the B18 and the Integra chassis. They make it pretty simple. You just got to disconnect it from the shock towers. These are the two engine sides of the harness. Once you remove those two, you can actually pull the whole engine out with the engine harness, and it makes it simple. But that way, then once you get on the engine stand, you can pull it apart from there. But I'm going to try to get some work done on this. Once the exhaust comes in, I think it's supposed to be here in 2-3 days, I will be putting it directly onto the Civic from even though it's stock over there. Just because I want to hear it, for one, I'm going to do a back-to-back video with the D16 in the exhaust, and then I'm also going to have it once the B18 goes in, which will be kind of a cool video for you guys. If you don't have a VTEC engine, you just have a stock Civic, what that exhaust sounds like. I've heard mixed reviews, but for the most part, everyone said it fits really well, it sounds really good, and it's not bad for the price. I think it cost me like 240 bucks for an exhaust system, which is, that's not bad, especially if it's like a Greddy, what is it, World Sport 2 exhaust knockoff, and it's fairly quiet. I'm just hoping it doesn't drone too bad without a cat on the B18, or I might have to just cut it out and put it in. So let's get started on today's vlog and episode and get some work done. One thing that you want to do when you loosen up these castle nuts I would loosen them down to the point where the bottom of the nut sits flush with here, because what you're going to have to do is just take a hammer and either hit right here on the knuckle, or you can give it a tap here to pop out this ball joint. But it's pretty straightforward. That way you just don't damage the threads when you want to reuse this if you need to. But for me, I'm planning just to remove this whole knuckle assembly and eventually swap it onto the Civic. But like I said, I'm going to make this a roller, get the engine out, put the engine in the Civic, put the Integra back in here, and then continue with the stripping process and take off the suspension bits and get it going, because I realized I don't want the engine to sit for very long by itself without it running, because it's going to get corrosion. It's just going to sit there and it's just kind of a waste. And if I have all the parts, I only had to spend 120 bucks to essentially get the Civic up and running with the VTEC motor. So it seemed like the best bang for my buck, and it'll also allow me to enjoy it sooner. So why not?
Tomorrow for sure.
This bad boy, this big old box, which is my new Yanaka exhaust system. Got some work to do today. I'm going to try to get the exhaust system off the Integra and the shift linkage and get that stupid pin out from the shifter, so that way I can drop that and really kind of start getting some work done on actually getting it out of the car. So let's get started. So I have been struggling with getting this exhaust off. I've just got the mid pipe off. This is the bolt, which is a 19mm bolt. I actually literally had to shear the sucker off. It's been driving me nuts, and it's been like slowing up all the progress so far. But I have made a lot more. I am now tearing apart the shift linkage. I got the sear clip off, and now I need to get the bitch pin out, which if any of you guys have ever had to remove, you understand what that means. But I'm gonna get the linkage out. I've already popped the ball joints off on the tie rod ends. But then I'm going to pop the knuckle off here, and I'm going to get the drive shafts off, put the suspension back on, and put it together, because then I'm going to be able to roll the car out after I pull the engine and put the engine in the Civic. So kind of doing a dual process, if you will. But got the O2 sensor out. I have to now finish the linkage. Got some of the old heat shields off. Making progress today, guys. Making progress. But if any of you guys ever work in a garage, getting one of these are awesome. They help out a lot.
Few inches later.
Alright guys, I had some time to do some work this morning, and I did not vlog it. I did not show it. It was tough. But anyways, I got a ton of work done. I want to show you guys an update of where I am with pulling the motor. I have pulled off the intake, so the intake's gone. I've removed the lower transmission mount and the lower mount on this side, and the passenger or the driver's side mount. This is for the AC compressor and for the mount itself. The other big thing that I have done, I've taken out all of the axles, so both axles on both sides are now gone. The exhaust is dropped, the shift linkage is out. I got all the suspension back put together so that way I can put the wheels on and roll it out for when I want to swap it. But guys, I am really close to pulling the motor. I got a few things to tidy up, but in terms of being underneath the car, everything's been removed. The only thing I have left up here is I got to remove my harnesses on both sides. I have to unplug all the coolant lines, and I believe that's it. Clutch line as well, and a few other grounds, but for the most part it's good. Like, I've gotten everything pulled off of it that I need to hopefully get the motor out in probably the next like 2-3 weeks. That's my plan. So with all the connectors just being left, I'm gonna have my daughter help me out a little bit. We're gonna start working on it a little bit. Guys, so got 1, 2, 3 bolts. Underneath here you have your fender brackets. You got to get the bolt there. The next one, when you open the door, you got one here in the door jamb, and then I believe down here we just got to take off that, and there's underneath there's a couple bolts too. So got a few things to do. You ready? Fender's off on this side. Now it's the time to take this one off. Alright guys, I'm gonna call it a day. It was actually really successful. I got a lot done. There you have it. Bumper removed.